Carlos Lehder was not just another trafficker, he was a revolutionary who rewired the cocaine trade with the mind of a strategist and the ambition of a dictator. His story begins in the shadows of Colombia and stretches all the way to the shores of Florida, where small planes loaded with white powder flew low across moonlit oceans. But behind every shipment, every bribe, every gunshot, and every flight path was a mastermind who believed he was unstoppable. This is not a story of drugs, it is a story of obsession, genius, and the inevitable collapse that follows unchecked ambition. And before this tale ends, you will see how a single man nearly reshaped America's war on drugs forever. But legends are never born in silence. Lehder rose from a troubled youth into the architect of a billion-dollar empire built on violence, loyalty, and a burning desire for power. His greatest invention, Norman's Cay, became a drug superhighway, a kingdom he ruled with iron fists and paranoid eyes. Yet with every plane that took off, with every dollar that flowed in, Lehder's name grew louder, until it echoed in the halls of Washington, triggering a manhunt unlike any in modern criminal history. Carlos Lehder began life as a restless, angry young man in Colombia. Born to a German father and Colombian mother, he grew up surrounded by privilege but consumed by rebellion. Even as a teenager, he chased danger, stealing cars, running small criminal schemes, and learning the psychology of the streets. His intelligence was undeniable, he studied people like a predator watching prey, always predicting the next move. By early adulthood, he was ready for something bigger, something that matched the intensity of his ambition. His early crimes eventually sent him to prison, but prison didn't break him, it educated him. Behind bars, he met a cellmate connected to American drug networks, and the two began plotting a new era of cocaine transportation. Lehder realized that while others were smuggling cocaine through mules and suitcases, the skies above the Caribbean were wide open. All he needed was a plane, a route, and an island. His genius was awakening, and the world had no idea what storm was coming. Once released, Lehder entered the cocaine trade with unmatched boldness. While others feared American law enforcement, he studied their weaknesses. He realized that small aircraft flying low across the ocean could bypass radar undetected. With this idea, Lehder became one of the first traffickers to industrialize air smuggling, turning isolated airstrips and abandoned islands into silent gateways for cocaine pouring into Florida. As demand in the U.S. exploded, Lehder's wealth multiplied. He reinvested every dollar into securing planes, pilots, landing strips, and bribes. But Lehder wanted more than routes, he wanted control. He dreamed of building a fully independent trafficking empire, one that didn't bow to cartels or corrupt politicians. To achieve this, he needed a headquarters, a base of operations that law enforcement couldn't touch, and destiny was about to hand him the perfect island. Off the coast of the Bahamas lay Norman's Cay, a peaceful tropical island soon to become the center of the world's most efficient cocaine pipeline. Lehder bought land, bribed officials, and slowly transformed the island into a fortress. He installed radar systems, hired armed guards, built runways, and turned the turquoise waters into a highway for smuggling. From Norman's Cay, plane after plane carried cocaine directly into the United States, millions of dollars in profit with every flight. Norman's Cay became more than a base, it was Lehder's empire. He walked its beaches like a dictator, displaying arrogance and confidence that bordered on delusion. Associates lived in fear. Enemies disappeared. Parties mixed with violence, and loyalty was enforced at gunpoint. To the outside world, the island looked like paradise. But inside, it was a kingdom built on paranoia. Power, and a man convinced he was invincible. With Norman's Cay operational, Lehder joined forces with the Medellín Cartel, led by Pablo Escobar. But unlike others in the cartel, Lehder didn't want to simply follow orders. He wanted influence, independence, and a larger share of power. His innovations in air smuggling made him indispensable to the cartel's operations, and for a moment, Lehder stood shoulder to shoulder with the most dangerous men in Colombia. But ambition comes with enemies. Lehder's increasing arrogance, his open political ambitions, and his refusal to stay quiet made him a threat inside the cartel. Some feared him. Others hated him. And all of them understood that a man with this much visibility could bring the entire empire crashing down. Lehder didn't know it yet, but his brilliance had painted a giant target on his back. As Lehder's fame grew, so did the pressure. U.S. authorities named him one of the biggest threats to national security. Informants began whispering his name. Rivals plotted his downfall. Even on Norman's Cay, Lehder's behavior became more erratic, ordering executions, interrogating his own men, and demanding absolute loyalty. He knew enemies were closing in, but he refused to abandon the island he believed he owned. The paradise he created began rotting from within. Pilots defected. Associates betrayed him. DEA surveillance planes circled above, gathering evidence. Norman's Cay was no longer a safe haven, it was a powder keg waiting to explode. The man once seen as unstoppable was beginning to lose control, slowly, violently, and inevitably. By the mid-1980s, the DEA launched a full-scale assault on Lehder's empire. Agents monitored flight paths, infiltrated his network, and applied pressure on corrupt Bahamian officials. The world that once protected Lehder began collapsing as the United States demanded justice. And with every intercepted shipment, every captured pilot, every raid, the noose tightened around his empire. Realizing he was being hunted, Lehder became consumed by paranoia. He reinforced security, interrogated his inner circle, and believed betrayal waited behind every door. Yet even with all his precautions, he couldn't stop the inevitable. His island fortress was now a trap, and the U.S. government wanted him more than ever. The betrayal finally came from inside. Someone close to Lehder provided U.S. authorities with the information they needed: locations, flight paths, contacts, everything. The DEA now had a blueprint of his empire. The man who once controlled the skies could no longer protect even his own shadow. Lehder fled into the Colombian jungles, hiding like an animal in the dark. The man who once commanded armies of smugglers was now sleeping under trees, running from village to village, hunted by both the government and his former cartel allies. His empire was dying, and he could feel the collapse with every step. In 1987, after years of escaping raids, Lehder was finally captured when Colombian forces launched a surprise operation in the dead of night. He was escorted away under heavy guard, his once fearsome aura shattered. Cameras captured the fall of a man who once believed he ruled the sky. Extradited to the United States, Lehder faced the full might of the American justice system. Prosecutors presented mountains of evidence: maps, flight logs, testimonies, and financial trails. The courtroom buzzed with the sound of journalists and spectators eager to witness the downfall of a myth. The verdict was inevitable: he was sentenced to life in prison, ending the reign of one of history's boldest drug traffickers. Behind bars, Lehder became a ghost of his former self. The man who once strode across islands like a king now spent his days in a concrete cell. Norman's Cay was abandoned, overtaken by vines and silence. His wealth vanished. His allies disappeared. His enemies celebrated. And Lehder was left with nothing but memories of a kingdom built on ambition and arrogance. But even in prison, he remained a symbol. Documentaries, books, and interviews tried to understand how one man reshaped an entire industry. Lehder had become more than a criminal, he was a cautionary tale of how genius, when mixed with obsession, can destroy everything it touches. Carlos Lehder's legacy is a paradox: a brilliant innovator who changed the world of drug trafficking, and a reckless egotist whose arrogance ensured his downfall. Norman's Cay still appears in satellite images, a silent reminder of what he once controlled. His empire was a miracle of logistics and a monster of violence, a combination that could not exist forever. Today, Lehder's story remains one of the most fascinating criminal sagas in American history. It reveals the thin line between brilliance and madness, ambition and destruction. He built an empire from nothing, and watched it collapse into dust. His life warns us that no matter how high someone climbs, the fall is always waiting. Carlos Lehder rose like a hurricane and fell like a collapsing star. His genius, ambition, and paranoia shaped one of the most explosive eras in America's war on drugs. But was he a criminal mastermind, or a man consumed by his own obsessions? Tell us what you think in the comments. If you want more powerful, shocking, and deeply researched stories like this, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us for the next unbelievable chapter.